We are in a new location. Where am I? Why am I whispering? For those of you who can't see, does she look good? In some ways, yeah. The natural light of an overcast city, Manchester, is kind of trickling in through the large windows and kissing my face. That's if you can't see me. If you can, you see that I'm tired and I look haggard. And I'm in polka dots, and I kind of have my hair up in a pineapple, and I am speaking at a low volume because next to me, hey, gather around everybody, come in closer. Let me swallow my spit before I really ASMR this shit. I did the bold, brave, and beautiful thing of doing an Airbnb that is literally shared with a man. And the man is obsessed with music, and the man is lovely, and the man is weird. Of course he's weird. He's on Airbnb sharing a bedroom next to his with a strange woman, with a thimble, with a wispy lock that really wouldn't keep anybody out if they want. There's a lock on the door of my room, and it's more ceremonial than anything, because if someone wanted to break in, you bust down the door. I basically busted down the door by mistake when trying to lock it. It came off, and I used some gum to just stick it back on the wall. So we're gonna get through this episode strong and together. And what I want to say is, I don't travel frequently for pleasure. 99% of my travel is for work. And so because of that, I get to stay in places where I typically have my own bedroom, if not my own bathroom, if not on my own. So if I'm traveling because someone's we're going on tour for a show, I would have my own room in a motel on the side of a highway. But because I'm self-funding this travel, I have been cheap. And the last time I did an Airbnb, I was staying with another person. It was years ago. And so enough time has passed in my life that I forgot what it feels like to have to share a space with a stranger. So when I was considering traveling again and considering my options for staying somewhere, the price and location of this place was so enticing that I had forgotten what it feels like to have to tiptoe through a stranger's house when you aren't wearing a bra in the middle of the night to go wee because you're a night owl and your new husband, who you don't have the same bedroom as, which is very modern of us, thank you, is a morning person. I also want to say he is obsessed. There's a lot of art everywhere, which is a woman who loves trinkets but isn't really I have a collage wall, as you all know from if you've watched any episodes, with the dumbest pictures ever. But there is paraphernalia everywhere. There's Elvis Presley, there's the Beatles, there's everyone and anyone who's been anybody. They're up on these walls. So every morning that I've been in Manchester, I've been waking up to the faces of Ringo Starr and whatever the other ones are. Yeah, I don't know the Beatles' names. Get over it. I'm not going to pretend I do. I have a couple things I do want to discuss today, to be honest. And recently I have felt not uninspired, but I have just been doing shows, getting through my day. So when I sat down to think, what does one Jess Fuchs want to talk about on today's episode? And it came flowing through me like a woman who's just had an extra large coffee and it's doing its job. So let's get the fuck into it. Breathe in. Welcome to What the Fuchs with Jess Fuchs. Now breathe out. And scream. Because here's what's pissed Jess off this week. The reason I said, had a large coffee flowing through me, diarrhea, was because it was a bit of an Easter egg to what I want to discuss this week. Now, I have never been a coffee drinker. I am high on life. Yes, slay queen. People are never surprised when I say that I'm a Scorpio, and they are always surprised when I don't drink coffee. For some reason, it is unfathomable to people that I am not a coffee drinker. I've never been. To me, it tastes like dirty water. So I also have never really spent time in the culture of coffee. And what I've noticed, especially as of late, is as the world gets worse, people's coffee orders become more specific and it becomes more important because it's the small joys in life that you have to hold on to. And I get that. But I have noticed as of late that people have become a bit more combative, a bit more argumentative, almost conspiratorial when it comes to their coffees. I was with a friend and we ordered drinks. Now, I either get depending on the mood, maybe an orange juice or a milkshake if I'm really feeling like I need... See, this is the thing. So coffee makes you shit yourself and is diuretic. A milkshake will do the same thing. If you can't have dairy, I can't imagine anybody processes dairy. And that's the end of that sentence. I don't think, you can't tell me that anyone's having dairy and not having diarrhea. Those two words sound similar for a reason. So I was with a friend and this coffee arrives, right? And we're at a classic London coffee shop. The barista literally looks like a stereotype and is just kind of moving their arms behind the machine. I'm like, are you making those sounds with your mouth? Because I don't think this machine, I mean, we are post-industrial revolution and there is a huge machine that's making coffee with a hipster who literally is like peppered with tattoos and a moustache that I'm like, why are you brushing it like that? Surely you'd have to wear a hairnet on that moustache. It's so dense. If the person making my avocado toast has to wear a head net on their nearly bald cranium, why aren't you wearing a hairnet on your moustache? Doesn't add up. But this coffee arrives at the table and my friend is insistent that there has been a mistake, that this is not 2/3 water, but it is 3/4. I'm like, isn't that the same? And they literally are like obsessed with the idea that this coffee is wrong. And I thought, uninvest in this. Lean back. Can you really taste such a big difference that they haven't cut your coffee with enough water to milk ratio? It sounds conspiratorial. Like they are like, no, the barista doesn't know what they're doing. Hold on, you think this goes all the way to the top? The machine nozzle is dirty? What are you talking about? And I'm sure there is some kind of, maybe they are right. Maybe as someone who has never really engaged with coffee culture, I don't actually know the difference. But I find it so hard to believe that a bunch of beans that have been compressed into soggy, dirty water, brown, dirty water, can be that heavily damaged by just a little bit of milk and a little bit of water at the wrong ratio. If that is true, why are we playing with fire like that? Why don't we find a more consistent, robust bean or thing to drink that isn't so easily damaged? It's so precious, these coffee beans. I had no idea. And then on top of all of that, you're telling me this thing that tastes like soggy, dirty water, like something that has been, you've strung a bunch of beans through a sock. That's what that tastes like to me. That's what coffee is to me. You're telling me you drink it. You're not even enjoying it because it's not perfect to your specific standards, right? And then you tell me it's going to make you shit yourself. What is the point of drinking coffee? I think because I haven't actually adapted to the taste palette of it, people will always be like, oh, you just have to like it for a little bit, like you just, yeah, it didn't taste great when I first started drinking it. That's what people say about wine, that's what people say about coffee, and then you start to rely on it because it's like people are like, I can't wake up, I need to have a coffee, I'm grumpy, I need a coffee. I'm like, I don't want to feel like I have to rely on a coffee to wake up and be online. And I know we all have our addictions. I like food. Okay, get over it. I like clothes. Okay. I know we all have things we're addicted to. I just think that at least food tastes good. The food that I like to eat, the clothes that I like to wear, it's like they look good, they taste good immediately. I'm not like shoving, a burger down my throat being like, it's one day I'll learn to like this. That's what people say about coffee and wine, that you have to like literally force yourself to like it, and then you have it's an acquired taste. I don't want to deal with anything that's an acquired taste that's going to then make me shit myself. The thing with wine is I always get a headache from alcohol in general. I always get headaches. I always think maybe it's like the sugar is too, maybe that's also if I'm drinking a cocktail. This week I also caught up with a wine friend. So I caught up with a pretentious coffee friend and a wine friend, a friend who loves wine. And we're sitting there looking at the menu and she already knows what wine she wants. She's like, what are you getting? And I was like, I don't really think I want alcohol. I don't know, blah, 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 blah. Going back and forth. The waiter comes over, I go, I'll have an extra dirty martini, extra dirty, filthy, multiple olives. And my friend goes, I thought you weren't drinking. I was like, a martini to me is not drinking. Anything that has that much drama involved, the alcohol is neutralized. The alcohol is vaporized as soon as you put an umbrella in something, as soon as you ice something. People who drink wine or vodka, you could get addicted to alcohol for sure. You could have a drinking problem, but I'm having an extra filthy martini. It's basically just olive water. You know what I mean? I don't think that there's any problem with someone who likes a filthy martini. Come on. You can't technically get addicted if you're drinking a Sex on the Beach, iced frappuccino, mango, fucking whatever. That doesn't have addictive proponents. I don't believe it. You've never met someone in AA who is like, God, my vice. God, a frozen mango slushy margarita. Get that in my veins. Every time I sucked back 17 of those, I got head freeze and it made me think about my father. No one's doing that. You can't be addicted to that. I don't buy it. It is funny how people just have these things, you know, the coffee friend who's like obsessed with coffee. I have a friend who's really coffee obsessed, or they were, right? And then they moved here to the UK. In Australia, they knew everything about coffee. They had really specific orders. They would have it be filled like this, and you would sit there while they described like literally like 17 things to this waiter. And I was like, this is crazy. Like, if something needs to be this nuanced and detailed. Meanwhile, the same coffee shops that will take orders that are like literally 10 pages long, no substitutions. No substitutions on food. Sorry, so I can't order something and just say, can you not give me the potatoes because I'm allergic? Nope, you have to order something else. Meanwhile, you take a coffee order that is literally like longer than the fucking Declaration of Independence. I'm like, how does that even make sense? It doesn't. But people have these really weird little particulars about food and alcohol. And I remember I had a friend who was vegan when I was younger, and she was like really horrible to me personally, but of course she was good to the animals, because, you know, just because you do something that seems morally or ethically correct, like being vegan, it doesn't mean that you're actually a good person. And I think people hear someone be like, yeah, I've been vegan for 15 years, and people are like, oh, you're so good to the animals. Yeah, well, you're bad to your friends. And isn't that the great irony? That some people, and look, hashtag not all vegans are nice, not all vegans are bad. And yeah, I know there's a big narrative, people make fun of vegans, fine, whatever. So vegans are already getting, I don't need to roast vegans, the concept, that the people in general. But what I will say is this vegan in particular, who I was friendly with, I literally, the way she would speak about a pig in captivity was nicer than the way she would speak about me to my face. And isn't that kind of funny? I'm like, this is a very grey area. I'm like, if only I was swine, maybe you would have been kinder to me. Something to think about, isn't it? Have you ever hung out? Okay, now, it doesn't matter what you look like. Some people are foodies, some people are eaters, some people are not. Some people don't take any joy from food. Now, I don't take joy from cooking. That is not... I hate cooking. I hate following a recipe. I like doing a breakfast, because a breakfast is like all different elements. So you could do your like mushrooms one way, then you do your eggs, then you've got your toast. I like element breakfast, fine. But I don't like having to think about like a lunch or a dinner, right? That is not me at all. So I would consider myself not a foodie, but I like to eat. Like if I'm traveling, I am going to eat throughout the day. I don't know if you've ever hung out with someone who's just like doesn't eat or sees food as fuel. People who see food as fuel, like I actually am jealous of how psychotic they are. I think that is, if I could be hypnotized for one thing, it would be to see food as fuel. And I know that is kind of like controversial, because food is such an amazing social lubricant. It's like 99% of the time that I hang out with friends. I mean, think about what I've already told you. Coffee and wine. Food came with both of those drinks. But it's so... to switch the mindset, food is fuel, is really hard. I think that's because, and I read this book years ago about this, it's like all the other things people can get addicted to, like sex, alcohol, smoking, all of that, you can technically live without. Like you can literally survive without drinking alcohol. In fact, it's better. But food is the only addictive thing that you literally like need to live off. You cannot just like go like, okay, well, I'll just not touch food, because that's too hard. That's not possible. So the point is, I like traveling alone because I can just like, what is the point? I don't remember, but there was a point. You know, every time I go into a topic, know that there is a point at the beginning. And then slowly I talk myself out of or down from or across or bingo my way not into a point. And then you guys have come along on a long journey, and then at the end you go, what? Now I leave here tomorrow and then I fly to Paris. I am really excited. Okay, as some of you know, I do believe Paris is a sexual city. I don't think that's an unfounded belief. I think it's quite well known that Paris and the French are sexual. I mean, I remember when I was young seeing a French man nibbling on his wife's earlobe when I was sitting in a pool when I was traveling. That stuck with me. That scarred me in some ways, seeing a man just gnawing on an earlobe and this woman kind of liking it. I was too young to see that sort of public display of sexuality. But I returned to Paris. I returned to France. I continue to give it. I like it. And there are so many movies and TV shows at the moment where the white woman escapes to Paris. And I do not know what that is. Emily in Paris, the summer I turned pretty. There was another thing that I watched the other day and she went to Paris as well. It's like, why Paris? Why is Paris the place? I think a lot of Americans who are writing these shows must obviously like view Paris a certain way. I don't know. It's fascinating. I love it. I mean, I am buying in. I'm cashing in, quite literally cashing in my check, my coins to go to Paris in 48 hours. Mind you, I'll be in the thick of French culture. I love a place where people are rude and cunty to the tourists. I think it's well deserved. I think a lot of other countries, cities, they go out of their way to make people feel welcome because their economy runs on tourism. And yes, of course, that is part of the culture where you have to be nice to tourists if that is the way that your country makes some money. But I appreciate that Paris kind of goes, no, we don't care. You come no matter what. And it's true because people have been cunts to people in Paris for years, for millennia, forever. And yet tourists go there in drives. So you being a cunt makes no difference to my experience. In fact, for me personally, it heightens my experience of being there. The ruder you are, the more I love your country. It's basically like we are being negged by France. That's what it feels like. And again, what was the point? What am I trying to say? It was sexual. I look forward to it. Oh, what's been amazing? Okay, so I'm going to Paris. I'm going for 2 weeks. A friend of mine, she moved there last year, so I'm going to catch up with her. And I had roughly 2 weeks before I had to be in America to go to some weddings. So I am, the weirdest thing though. So I'm going to Paris and I'll be in an Airbnb. And then one of my friends is meeting me. He lives abroad. 3 of my American friends, they were like, we're going to Paris as well, so I'm going to see them. Then one of my British friends is coming over for a weekend. Then one of my Australian friends, Nick, who actually he's been on this podcast, he lives in Melbourne now, so I never get to see him. He is also going to Paris. So in the span of 2 weeks, I am seeing all of my favorite people. And you know what's crazy? None of them are overlapping. Serendipitous. I don't know what sort of French god there is, but he, she, they, it, cunt. I imagine the French have a god who just smokes cigarettes, has bright red lipstick, and just ashes down on them, and that's what snow is in that country. And I love that. And whoever that person is up in the sky, they have made the most delicious schedule for my friends visiting me in Paris. So I'm going to feel like I live there. If I didn't want to be a comedian, I would either live in Paris or I would live in like Rome, because I like the aggression and the anger of those cities. I also would love to speak either of those languages, but I don't think I would ever be able to speak those languages unless someone literally was like, you cannot feed, clothe, or make yourself happy in these countries unless you learn to speak the language. And then I would have to, over many, many years, labor over the language. What else did I do? So I left London. Now, the last day I was in London, I went to see The Lion King because I've seen a number of things. It was theatre week, which is basically like, I don't know, a long time, a lot longer than a week in London. So a lot of the tickets that are usually like £100 were so cheap, were like 20 or 25 pounds. So I booked well in advance, like a bunch of musicals. And the last one I saw was The Lion King. Now, I had seen Lion King with my grandma so many years ago when it came to Australia. All I remembered was like animals coming down the walkway. That's it. I didn't remember anything else. But obviously we've all seen the movie, or I'm assuming we have. And a friend of mine, after we saw, I went and saw Mamma Mia, and she saw something else. We had dinner, and I said, you know, it was great, and I love the music because it's like classic Mamma Mia stuff, but I just feel like it's not like a classic musical. When I say classic musical, I don't know the qualifications. I don't know what is technical. I am saying a classic musical in my heart, in my head. That is, whenever I talk, I am speaking from data science of one. There's no information that has been Googled. There's no information that is technical or official. Okay, so when I say classic musical, I'm sure there are some criteria, and I am sure that it meets said criteria, but in the Jess Fuchs criteria, it didn't feel, and maybe it felt like cheating because it's like an ABBA jukebox musical, or because it was based on a movie. I don't know what it was doing for me mentally. My friend was like, go see The Lion King. Now, the only time I could go was a matinee at 2:30 p.m. So the day before I leave London, I go to see this 2:30 matinee Lion King Lyceum Theatre. And I think to myself, the last time I saw this, I was a child. This is a movie for children. And I roll up get off my Lime bike, forget my umbrella in the front capsule of the Lime bike, the third one, of course, the third time I've done that, stupid bitch. And I look around and what do I see, everybody? What do I see? I see children in school uniforms. I see children not in school uniforms. I see families of 8. I see school excursions with children ranging from 8 to 16. And I think, now what the hell am I doing here? Because I should have picked a non-matinee. And yes, you could say, well, you picked a place that is arguably the most child-friendly musical and you picked the most child-friendly time, a matinee during school hours, to go and you're wishing there were no children. Yeah, I get the cognitive dissonance there. I do. But it doesn't mean that a girl can't dream and wish. So I walk in and I think, okay, let's just try to remain positive. Perhaps you won't be next to some children. I arrive. I'm not next to children. Thank God. What's worse, though? See, now you think the problem would be to be seated next to a child. That isn't great. But I also think in this day and age with, pedos and whatnot running around, I do think all of the children sit in a row flanked by teachers, because that's what I saw. However, what is worse than having to sit next to a child is sitting in front of or behind. Now, in this situation, I am in front of 2 children, parents flanking, and these children wouldn't shut the fuck up. They were kicking around, they were on booster seats. So when you're on a booster seat, what do you think happens? Your little tiny brain and head is right next to my shoulder, especially when they're leaning forward and screaming every time they see an animal. You're at the Lion King, as if your parents didn't prep you for this, bitch. So these children are not shutting the fuck up. Now, in the first handful of rows, it's mostly adults. Good. That's the expensive seats. No one's wasting that shit on children. They're not even going to remember this. Now in the back, rows behind us, children, school children. And they don't shut the fuck up. I mean, you hear shushes and you hear be quiets and you hear every single sound you can imagine. And I just try to lock in. I think, Jess, just focus on the people on stage. These people are idiots. These children are stupid. Just focus on the artists. Meanwhile, kids kicking me from behind. They've got popcorn. They're fighting over it. In the second half after the interval, the parents have to take turns leaving for emergencies, in quotes, because they keep having to force everybody to stand up in the row so they can carry their ugly snot-brained children out and then back in. Just get out. They clearly don't want to be here. They're too young for this. It's scary. You're telling me you're seeing Mufasa fall down a rock face and you're bringing your underdeveloped child's brain here? That's bad parenting. However, in the interval, I go and I'm standing in the bathroom line because obviously the women's line is always quadruple the men's. Now, I get that equality is, personally, my belief about equality is equal, right? If you get this, if you get paid $50,000 to do this job, well, the woman doing the same job should get the same money. That is the basic principle for me of equality in the most brutalist, if we reduce it as much as possible. When it comes to bathrooms, I just believe that women should have double the cubicles. I really do. I think if men are doing mostly wheeze, give them as many trays to piss in, or whatever they're called, urinals to piss in, as you can put in a square box. But for women, we need cubicles. You also aren't considering that people are on their periods. Put a bin. That you have walked into a place that is run by men or owned by men when there is no bin in the bathroom because they haven't thought about someone getting their period. I'll say that. So I'm standing in line. And it's a long line and it's moving very slowly because many children are waiting to go to the toilet and all the teachers have to make sure that they're safe. Fair. And I hear a bit of a squabble and I look around and I see an old woman, white hair, standing with 2 teachers who are wearing lanyards. And the teachers are saying, so one of the girls is crying because she said you hit her in the head. Yeah, I'm nosy. You're telling me that's the first sentence I hear out of these people's mouths? I'm listening. And I'm not even pretending to not listen. I'm full-blown gawking. So these 2 teachers are saying to this woman, so she's crying because you smacked her. You hit her in the head. And she said, no, I just tapped her. And she takes a finger and she imitates a tap because she wouldn't be quiet. And she goes, okay, well, in future, please don't hit the children. And this woman's going, what? I didn't hit them. They just wouldn't be quiet. And the teacher goes, I understand, but because That one, a few of them have ADHD. Okay, here's the thing. There's two parts to this equation. The first is you got to give it up to these teachers. Now, these teachers are probably in their 50s. So they grew up in a time where having ADHD was not an excuse, right? No one really knew about it. You just were forced to pay attention and to deal with it, or you were considered a naughty kid and were just extradited, or whatever the word is. You were kind of just naughty. Now, that's not the right thing to do, because these kids just need a little bit of help or a different learning environment. Fair. But if you were in your 50s or 60s and you grew up in a time and an environment where like having ADHD was just not the thing, like that was not a spoken of thing, to now have to use that as an excuse when the children you are teaching are acting a fucking fool. I mean, I don't know if that is like a great education system in terms of like these teachers have gone to university and have been taught to be more tolerant, or if I have no idea. But the fact is, I salute these people who are using ADHD as an excuse for children's poor behavior when you've taken them to the theater that other people have spent so much money. The other part of the equation too is now you've got this like 60-year-old white-haired woman who grew up in a time where you could hit kids. And the adults wouldn't turn around and question the adult who hit the kid. They'd question the kid. They'd go, well, shut the fuck up. This adult told you to shut up. And this woman has walloped a kid over the head who's now crying and has gone to the teachers. And the teachers aren't telling the child to shut up, but are telling this woman, please don't hit our kids. It was the most delightful experience. I went back to my seat, absolutely new sense of just excitement for the second half. I kept thinking about this woman literally having a confrontation with these teachers who were defending the ADHD kid. And then the woman is saying, well, I had to, I didn't hit her. I just tapped her on the head and said, be quiet. I thought, you groups of people will never see eye to eye. Meanwhile, you're all servicing the children. You walk back and this woman has to sit the second half in front of the kid or behind the kid who she's just walloped. And the teachers have to sit there paying attention. I mean, it was just an absolutely delightful interaction with no ending. The thing is, I think whether it's with comedy or musicals or anything, or humans, everyone just needs a sense of closure, right? You have a breakup, you want a sense of closure. You get ghosted, it's upsetting because you don't have closure. The book doesn't end the right way. You don't have closure. I think we need this, humans, we need it to feel a bit like, okay, that feels settled, that feels finished. But sometimes you don't get a sense of closure. Sometimes you hear people talking about how an old woman hit a kid on the head and you have no idea how the second half goes. And I think there's just something kind of beautiful and open-ended about that. I did go to the bathroom and get my period, and that gave me closure in the way that I was like, yes, being around this many children screaming throughout a musical I spent a lot of money on, and having an egg pass through me, I thought, that is Hakuna Matata, that is the circle of life. And that I'm in the place where I need to be, free bleeding in the Lyceum Theatre in London on the day before I leave. Stunning. Describe a better day. Describe a better day. The drama, the outrage, the excitement, the lack of closure. It's a perfect day. Okay, it's bucketing outside. I have to go to a show in Liverpool about an hour away. I went to a show yesterday in Liverpool, and guess what? I caught the train in the wrong direction. So I sat on the train for an hour to come back, to then sit on another train, to then sit on another train, to then sit on the train to Liverpool. So today I've learned my lesson. I won't be doing that. However, given that I left my umbrella in the front bucket of a Lime bike, I will now have to go buy a fourth umbrella. And this is the thing, why are umbrellas so easy to lose? What is that about humans, that they're just easy to lose and forget? It's because they're not attached to us. All the advancements in technology and what we can do, Botox, Ozempic, and you still haven't found a way to make a detachable umbrella just stored on my body? Can't it just be like a chip insert? I wouldn't even mind an umbrella just like strapped to my thigh at all times. And then when it rains, I can just take it out. I want to say thank you for listening. I want to say welcome to Manchester. I hope you like it. A bit something, I don't know. And I'll be coming to you next week from Paris. And hopefully I'll have some very sexually charged stories to share. I hope you have a beautiful week. Thank you for listening. Over and out.